People think they're getting away with murder when they are trying to hide assets in a divorce. It only works if the other side doesn't check, right? So people think they're being very clever and they're hiding assets. You got to remember, people hide assets for a living all the time and they still get caught. When you do it in a divorce, it's usually a one-time thing. It's your first time doing it. You're an amateur at concealing assets. You're not going to do it well. You may think you're clever and slick. It's just not going to work. Here's a really good example of a case we've been following since last year where there was fraud in a divorce battle. The wife didn't fulfill her legal obligation to fully share information about assets with the husband. This is the most common thing. Didn't disclose a $4 million insurance policy. And look, it doesn't matter what kind of asset it is. You can hide assets a number of different ways. No matter what you think is clever and slick and you're smarter than everybody else, you cannot hide the assets. Many times people get away with it though because the other side doesn't even check. People don't do asset searches regularly in a divorce. They take the word of the other side. They think that the asset disclosure that's provided is to be relied upon. If you are in a situation where you are doing something serious enough to separate a marriage, that's like a partnership, obviously something is pretty serious between the two people. It could be a conflict about lifestyle. It could be animosity about infidelity. It could be a number of things, but there's already some, conflict between the two parties. So for somebody to hide assets, it's really nothing. It's not really any extra, moral stretch on their part. It's very common in marriage fraud or family law fraud to have assets being concealed or underreported. Almost all the time when we look at a case, there's some level of assets being concealed. So you don't want to let it go. In addition, if you do find assets being concealed, not only can you claw those assets back into the family law estate, you can usually get some sanctions, maybe legal fees, maybe extra discovery. You can have the court do some extra things to make your results better for you. Don't think that just because the other side had a relationship with you, they're not going to try to advantage themselves. Most people going through a divorce feel very scared about the future financially. They're going to have half of their resources. They're going to have half their assets. They're not going to have maybe part of the income. So they're going to struggle and really panic about what they're going to have for financial capital in the future. And that may make them do some things that are morally different than what they normally would do. So don't take any chances. Get a good asset search. If you're skeptical or cautious or even suspicious of the other person, you're probably right. Most people's instincts are correct. And there's ways to very clearly define what assets are supposed to be in a divorce, which ones are separate marital property, and which ones have to be divided up. And if you find assets that are not properly distributed, it's called a fraudulent conveyance, and you can have that undone and also maybe get more from that than just redeploying those assets to you. So if you have questions about a potential family law fraud or divorce fraud, click the link below. There's consultation you can do, there's cases you can do, or ways to research the assets and discover things that are being hidden, usually not very cleverly.